How is this even a television show? It's December the 1st, 2011. This is 508, a show about Worcester on YouTube as well as Channel 13 in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm Michael Benedetti. Today on the show is Brendan Milliken. How are you, sir?
I'm excellent. It's been a while.
It has been a while. We're here. It's a little chilly. We've got a warm wood-burning stove here. There's been like so much news in the past few weeks.
All of it absurd.
All of it absurd. And the sad thing is, I feel like I could have done such a good show a week ago. Today, it's all just stale news.
Yeah, it's
like,
old
who
news,
cares?
and it's not necessarily any of it. None of it's really good news. I don't think either.
Yeah, at least of the news that we can comment on.
Yeah.
But what are we going to talk about? I don't know. Ooh, my phone is making a noise. No, nobody's left us any good news to talk about. I don't know. I mean, like the big news in Worcester this week. Let's just do the recap of big news in Worcester for people who only follow the news via this program. Again,
they are out there.
Of who there are out there, which is that
Stop that.
you could incorrectly summarize the story by saying the PIP shelter has reopened. That basically what happened was a year ago, the PIP shelter, which is the big shelter downtown, where like come as you are, you're drunk, you're high. We can get you a bed if we got a bed. Come on in. 100 people plus in this shelter every night. Rough place. Nobody I ever talked to who stayed at the PIP ever had much good to say about it.
It's probably like the closest thing Worcester could come to like if we were to have our own Christiana, like that would be the PIP shelter.
Like a place where there's sort of just tolerated.
There's no rules. Like that whole like and it wasn't Amsterdam. It wasn't necessarily like the PIP shelter, but that whole Main and Wellington corner. It just seems to be like a no man's land.
People selling drugs outside the chicken place.
And nobody, yeah, I mean, and you've got more police officers walking a beat in Tatnick Square than you actually have on that corner.
I got to tell this story, but let me put it in a little bit of context. So it was there, the PIP shelter was an important part of our dealing with the homeless in Worcester, which we do a pretty good job, although we have not solved homelessness.
Michael Bryan's working on that.
That's whatever people say. We haven't solved this problem, but we do better than a lot of cities will do with a problem. Anyway, that was a big cornerstone of what was going on as far as dealing with the homeless. Was that you had this weird place that people could just go to. Of course, it caused like problems in the neighborhood that you had like 150, not everybody there an active drug addict, but you can again exaggerate and say 150 active drug addicts living in one building in the densest part of the city. Forever a problem, forever a controversy. Finally, Barbara Haller, the longtime city councilor from that district, was like, we got to get this out of here all the time. We got to get this out of here. We got to get this out of here. Finally, a year ago, they say, fine, we're going to get it out of here. What we're going to do is we're going to switch over to a system where you got to go to a place by the Community Health Link sort of facility over there on Queen Street, still in her district, but sort of down Chandler Street, a few blocks away. And you got to go through a triage process. You're going to come in. We're going to process you. You might stay here for a little bit, but then we're going to like put you in a smaller program, more focused programs distributed around the region rather than just keeping everybody in one building. This thing turns into like 75 people living in this triage center. This eventually turns into Community Health Link saying to the South Middlesex Opportunity Council, SMOC, who used to run the PIP, you guys need to run this triage center. SMOC says, we're going to put this down in Webster Square. The people in Webster Square completely go nuclear on this, I would say. Then the city council comes in. The city council, by the way, I've been frustrated by the news coverage of this because I feel like every news coverage of the city council's reaction to this needs to start off with the sentence, the city council has no power on this issue. Like there's this thing called the Dover Amendment, which basically says if you want to do something like this and you buy the building and you're like a legit nonprofit, you can just do this.
Yeah, if you're it's a section of our zoning, state level zoning laws, and it gives an exception for not-for-profits that have human services or agriculture focuses that have a heavy focus on education. They're essentially exempt from zoning laws.
Yes. So people want to say like people want to have some kind of control over their neighborhood. I never really ever know where to draw the line here too. Because let me tell you, I'm sure there's neighborhood groups in Worcester who would be like, you know what, like this Jewish family that's moving in, let's kind of like try to petition the city council not have them move in, or this black family that's moving in,
property values.
Like exactly, you can come up with all kinds of reasons besides that you're a dirty racist for like pretending why you would have a problem with this stuff. The moving of the metal in that pot. So anyway, so then there's a big uproar for like we don't want this place moving into this neighborhood because like, and again, like I think that people's concerns are overblown. I also think that some concern is very legitimate. The city council does decide to have a vote on this, despite the fact that it means nothing. And they're like, why don't you put it back in the old building where it used to be, back when it was the PIP? And the SMOC is like, let's make it happen. Fine, deal is done. This is like sort of hilarious because Barbara Haller, who like lost big in this last election, this was like her signature achievement of her whole time on the city council, was like, I have gotten the PIP out. And then during this like lame duck 2 months, they're just like, whatever, we're basically reopening the PIP. Not basically, because it's a different kind of a program, but it's going to be similar in scale, similar population, similar kind of concerns of the PIP. The exact same building.
And it wasn't just Barbara Haller, it was the city manager and the council as a whole, all of whom are still sitting members of the city council, promised the city. I mean, they made a verbal contract with not just that neighborhood, but the city of Worcester, but that the PIP shelter would never return. That it was never going to reopen. And you know, if there was any lesson learned from this whole experience, it's not that, you know, we've joked before that if you can get 12 of your buddies together and go to City Hall, you can change the you don't even need to do that. You just need to get really, really angry, belligerent, and make completely insane arguments and scare the bejesus out of the city council, and you'll get whatever you want. Like, Occupy Worcester, if they actually want to camp on the Common, they should just show up next Tuesday night with bats and hockey sticks.
They should be madder.
And they will actually they'll dedicate the Common after them. I mean, they just need to get much more angry and violent and whisper, physical threats into the ear of the city manager as they're passing by him. They'll get whatever they want. I mean, it was a really sad sort of thing too, because you know, I don't agree historically with Barbara Heller on much, right? There's one thing that I think she actually worked really hard on and was right about, that, you know, having the PIP shelter and functioning the way it was in that location made no sense, right? It just didn't. She made a very impassioned sort of speech justifying why it shouldn't return Tuesday night, and she was just shouted down by a bunch of belligerent lunatics who had absolutely no interest in having a conversation like adults, just wanted to get their way. And it was kind of, you could hear her voice like warbling, right? I mean, there was like a level of intimidation in the room that was, you just don't typically see.
How many police were at this meeting?
There were fewer police at this meeting for 150, violent rabble than there have been for the last 2 weeks. There were 5, I counted. Okay. There may have been more, but relatively speaking, you know, we've had 7 and the chief of police for 30 college students representing Occupy Worcester. You had 150 people who were actually passing threats to elected officials in the city of Worcester. They get 5 cops.
Well, you know, because they're scaling down. They realized that they had too many people at those previous things, and now, from now on, it's going to be more reasonable police presence. One police per.
But you don't actually
people,
want
per 30 people.
Yeah, heavy-handed police presence really only works with nonviolent protesters. What's the point of putting police in harm's way when there's actual violent people on the table? You know, it's a more fun sort of show of force when they're only nonviolent people.
I have maybe 2 things to say about this thing with the PIP. At the outside, I have 2 things to say. One is that I think that since the PIP closed and it switched to a triage center, the only emergency shelter in the city is the Catholic worker. Like the only place where you could literally show up and just be like, here I am. And if they had a bed, they would take you in and be like, okay. But the Catholic worker is like tiny and doesn't have a lot of turnover. So it's effectively, there's like no emergency shelter now. Which is, I think, why people who are homeless advocates have sort of been, as they did last week at the city council meeting, making a thing about, you know what, like there's some kind of problem now with the system that we don't have that kind of escape valve. The other comment I want to make is about people selling drugs at the chicken place across from the PIP, which is that today I was walking down Main Street with somebody who has just moved to the city of Worcester, and I was showing her around the downtown, and I was like, here's the PIP, and I wanted to be like, and here's the people selling the drugs, but there was 4 police officers standing there, so I'm just very quiet. We walk by them, and as we walk by them, one of the police officers says to the other ones, he says, well, I think they all moved down there because we're here. Maybe we should move down there. And they like walk down the street to where there's about a block away. There's like more of a crowd of people. And it was kind of awesome. It was like 4 police officers on the street in Main Street, like not actively arresting somebody. It was kind of incredible. And it was just kind of like, my friend was like, this must be like, because it's like opening day. And I was like, I think it probably is. Keep things mellow for the first couple of days.
I mean, that should be... Right. I mean, if there's a couple take-home messages here, it's one that the city of Worcester still acts like a bunch of children when it comes to any sort of vice, right? I mean, because really this came down to not people being unwilling to acknowledge that there is a need for some sort of social service programs in the city, but that their children might have to look at people smoking cigarettes outside of some sort of, health facility. I mean, it was some really just bizarre sort of arguments that people were having that you might have an alcoholic in the neighborhood, right? As if you don't already have alcoholics in your
In
neighborhood.
your own house.
Yeah, upstairs. You might call him dad. Who knows? I mean, yeah. But the stranger thing is this idea that we can police our way out of social service, out of you know,
These
social
problems.
ills, right? I mean that like you just said, you get 4 cops standing now at the corner of Main and Wellington Street. Well, drug dealing has now gone away, right? No, it just moved the next, like you said, it moved the next block over because there aren't 4 cops standing there, which ultimately comes. That's the problem that I think we have here is that you go back years ago. The state, used to handle a lot of the social service needs in the Commonwealth, whether it was mental health, addiction, whatever the case may be. We all decided that the state did a terrible job. They were totally inefficient and what have you. So we started pushing that, like we're doing now in education, to the private sector.
Right.
And now we just have a system where the private sector is making bank off of this stuff, right? I mean, they're all not for profits, but they're rolling in cash from state funds. Arguably more money being spent in the private sector than there was mismanaged in the public sector. But what we end up with is a system where nobody is really seemingly caring about the folks that actually need social services, right? We're trying to police them out of existence, which, I know we have a lot of people in the city of Worcester who believe that's the right take, right? That we should just push people into another community and let them deal with it. It's just a really bizarre mentality, from my perspective, that I don't think we've done anything meaningful in terms of conquering some pretty basic sort of social problems like addiction and homelessness, right? I mean, they're complex and on their own in the grand scheme of things, but from a public policy perspective, right? A little bit of compassion goes a long way. Actually looking out for people that are on hard times goes a long way. Those are the things we don't do. We just take a bunch of cops, put them on a street corner, which has its role, but doesn't actually cure addiction. Maybe we'll put some planters down. I'm sure we'll maybe drop a tree or two on the street and make the neighbors feel good, but it has absolutely zero impact on the real issue, which is addiction issues and issues of homelessness.
Yeah.
What do I know?
I'm going to move on.
Move on.
I'm going to move on. I want to read a couple of comments about what's going to be our next story. One comment I think we got from Europe. Somebody said...
What are they doing getting their news?
Somebody from Europe was watching a show that we did about Occupy Worcester.
Well, thank you for watching, but seriously, I mean, there's good media over there.
They said, it gets tiresome when you do not make the effort to focus and get lost in self-irony or something similar. I have to say, I feel like one of the major exports of the city is got to be irony. We got to use this.
We have.
And then we got another comment about Occupy saying, I think Occupy Worcester has run out of steam. I know it's your show, but what about shining some light on the situation between SMOC opening up a triage center and all the resistance they're hearing? I'd be really interested to hear some opinions on that. So there's the SMOC thing. I'm going to talk about this Occupy Worcester anyway. Yeah. So basically, we could go through the entire history of Occupy Worcester. The most recent things that we've seen was, first of all, last week, City Council put before themselves, do we want to take a leadership role on something for the love of God in the city? And they said, hell no. So that's what we got last week at the City Council. In the meantime, there's this really sort of funny thing that happened in the paper, which is, so Occupy Worcester sort of, the Missionary Society, the Mission Society, Worcester Mission Society controls like this parking lot by Lincoln Square there. And like they sort of had this like arrangement, like, okay, we could set up a little camp here. And they were kind of setting up some little tents and things for about a week. And then after about a week of this, they did two things. One is they took like all this Lake Ave stuff, started taking more of it out of storage and trying to put up like substantial amount of tents. And at the same time, they talked to the Missionary Society, who were like, oh, these tenants are coming in some of the buildings nearby, and we can give you another week, but you got to kind of move. So it was kind of funny that like at Tuesday evening's General Assembly, it was sort of announced like, hey, we actually only got a week left. In Wednesday morning's Telegram and Gazette was a big article, Occupy Worcester is digging in for the long haul at Lincoln Square, potentially having talked to somebody that afternoon, but not actually getting back to anybody that evening. And mentioning in the article at the very end, oh, we didn't talk to anybody from the Mission Society. Which if they had talked to them, they might have gotten a little more of a heads up. The next day, of course, it's like, Occupy Worcester's going to have to move. Big news. Anyway, I go down there. I've done these interviews. People look at these interviews on YouTube. People are like discouraged. People are like doing good things in Occupy Worcester. They're working on the different projects. They're working on the anti-foreclosure task force and things like this, which is really cool. As far as the campsite goes, I go down there. I cannot find happy people to talk to me on the video about the campsite. And they're going to have to move. Here's the idea. First of all, oh, by the way, have you seen the Occupied Wall Street Journal?
It's beautiful.
This is a fantastic newspaper. I just want to say all professional
Look how broad
publishers.
this broadsheet is.
This is it. This is it. You know what? Like, I got something to tell you. If you're just doing like something on paper and you're just like trying to save some money, just like print it like something tiny. Fine, go for it. You know, if you're going to keep shrinking your paper, go for it. If you want to say this paper has some value, we actually care about paper. Paper has affordances the internet doesn't have. Paper has affordances my phone doesn't have. Like, this is how you do it, people. This is how you do it. Live life loud. That's all I'm going to say. It's red and black and white, perfect color combo with a nice couple of color photos in there.
It's an actual newspaper.
This is some smart. Oh my god.
Telegram and Gazette, you are officially on notice.
This is it. This is how it's done. This is what Occupy can do, people. I'm sorry to say. Okay, anyways, so.
And that's just it, too, right? I mean, you know, it's easy for folks to, like, poke at, like, say, the Worcester group, which was pretty small to begin with, and say, like, well, they've accomplished nothing, really. But they have, right? I mean, you just the networking alone between people who would otherwise never have met each other, new skills that have come together as a result of that. And now you've got, maybe they won't be camping out for the winter, but good, because we won't be you and I won't be joking about frostbite all winter then. We'll actually have people out in the street working, like you said, with the anti-foreclosure groups. Who knows where people are going to end up?
And they've dominated the public discourse in the city for 2 months.
But if this alone...
And which I have to say, like, the fact that they've dominated the public discourse in terms of have they washed their hair more frequently? This is the fault of the people who hear their prophetic voice and want to focus on the fact that they're eating locusts and honey rather than on what they're saying. I'm sorry. I'm sure Jeremiah had the same thing. Jeremiah, what's your program? Jeremiah would be like, you know what? If you would pray to God, maybe he would give you the program, or maybe he would smite you, but maybe that's the problem. That's what Jeremiah would tell you if you asked for his program. Jeremiah was a prophetic voice. That's a prophetic voice. That's all I'm going to say.
But if this newspaper alone was the only thing to come out of the Occupy Wall Street movement, then that's huge, right? I mean, I hate to break it to folks who like to fancy themselves like savvy consumers of media, but this right here is where your papers of record come from, right? I mean, watershed moments in society where someone says, you know what, I'm going to start keeping notes on this. Next thing you know, 10 years go by and you have a daily newspaper that is a meaningful cultural institution. I mean, again, if something like this carries on, you now have a voice for a movement that is bigger than a bunch of tents and whatnot. I think that's what people have lost sight of.
Well, here's the visionary idea for the next step for Occupy Worcester. I don't like to focus too much on the camping, but the camping is kind of one of the key innovations and kind of, I feel like we're in a crazy time in our society, and the Occupy movement is so weird that maybe it still has a chance to do something. Everything else doesn't have a chance, or it's not weird enough to possibly have a chance. Occupy, I feel like, is still weird enough that who knows what's going to happen with Occupy Worcester tomorrow. The answer is, where do you move the camp to? This is not my idea, but this is told me by somebody very smart, I believe. International waters. Lake Quinsigamond. This is the time of the year that you can go on Craigslist. People are trying to get rid of pontoon boats, rent out, get these things out of their house. They're kind of busted there or whatever. You get on there, you get yourself some pontoon boats. You go to Lake Quinsigamond. You build a camp. More tents, more boats, no problem. Eventually, what happens? Lake freezes over. All your problems are solved. You don't even need to have like a little shuttlecraft at that point.
I don't know that Lake Quinsigamond actually qualifies as international waters.
Yeah, but you know what? If you camped on the Worcester-Shrewsbury line in a boat, who's going to... I mean, it's the kind of thing where it's going to give you a month while somebody tries to figure out who to have arrest you for what.
Something tells me that there are some folks in the Shrewsbury Police Department that would figure out an interagency response to this, and it would not end up well at all. But I like the idea because it's very much like Sealand, right? What was that?
Yes, yes.
The old oil rig sort of thing that was out in the middle of nowhere that was going to be like the libertarian country, but it was like a server farm.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, that... Boston Harbor. Maybe that's the way to go.
Here's what I got for you, Brendan Melican. Beards. I got you beards. I got Worcester Magazine, the Fuzz Club. Worcester Magazine has a nice cover story this week with a ton of beards. Where are they? They're in here somewhere. A ton of nice big photos of beards. I'm all about celebrating all kinds of things, especially people. The fact that people have beards. You know what? Once every 10 years, sure. Celebrate the fact that there's people with Worcester with beards. Some of them have bagpipes. Some have a ray gun. There's like 10 beards in here. Plus, we got coming out which came out last week was the November Happiness Pony. November Happiness Pony. Not only is Worcester smaller than Providence, you've watched this show, you know this line of argument. It's got like a ton of beards. We got Keith's beard. We got Paul Hernandez, really great beard. Jeremy Shulkin, the late Joe DeVoe, the late Ellery B. Crane. We got a lot of beards going on. This is actually making me think about the role of beards in the city, because we have no bearded city councilors, right?
We do not.
Not even mustachioed.
It is actually possible. If somehow this needles in my head, as something like an old person told me once when I was young and impressionable, that we might actually have an ordinance in the city that disallows facial hair for city councilors, elected officials.
What's his face? Juan Gomez had a mustache.
Well, he still has a goatee, but didn't he? I think he was clean shaven when he was on the council.
You think there is an ordinance? Well, this is.
Please, someone find that out for me, because it's stuck in my head. That's something that like a crazy old person probably told me once. But
flip back a couple pages, because people have been looking at this and saying like, oh, they just stole this from Happiness Pony. But what I got to say is like, it's cool. There's a little Happiness Pony credit.
Yeah, that's very nice.
So there's
a
a
guy
nice
in a hot dog suit too.
There's also, I don't know what that is.
You don't get enough of that.
I have nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with Happiness Pony. Anyways, yeah, I was just wondering, like, who are Worcester's, like, who are the beards of Worcester that we're not getting? Like, who are your power players in Worcester who are bearded?
Did Jordan Levy had a beard for a while?
Yeah, but I'm not putting him in Happiness Pony. Happiness Pony is 100% against Jordan Levy. Not against him, it's just against that aesthetic.
Power players with beards. I don't know. Get a couple of ship captains up there on your shelf.
There you go. Probably not too many. Maybe some ministers. Maybe some Orthodox ministers.
Frank Zitimersky have a beard?
I have no idea.
I think he's got a beard.
There's people with mustaches. You got your Billy Bro has your mustache.
He's got it's a healthy mustache too.
Anyway, that's just a question I'm throwing out there. Bill Coleman shaved his beard before he ran for city council.
He knew he was gonna if he won.
It frustrates me to no end. I've complained about it on this show before, probably.
Meh. I can't think of any. I'm one of those people that since I can't grow meaningful amounts of facial hair, or at least I'm one of those people that it doesn't all connect, just like a spotty sort of thing.
Sure.
I'm ultimately just jealous of people who can, so I just ignore them.
There you go. Well, I would be curious.
Just shut them out.
I would be curious to try to figure out who would be Worcester's most powerful, not people with the most powerful beards, but people who are the most influential people who have a beard, whether it's a distinguished beard or just sort of like they have a beard.
Who's the actor that we've talked to in the past? Walks around with a cane in Worcester.
Joe Finnerl.
Yeah. Beard.
He does have a beard.
Yeah.
He has a powerful voice. I don't know if he's powerful.
He's got a stick.
He's got a suit.
Big stick.
Tilly hat. I like the Tilly hat. Well, that's good.
That's all I need to know.
Hi, Joe. I really hope Joe watches this show sometime. Hi, Joe. How's it going? I was gonna say, speaking
Bob Largess.
Bob Largess.
He's got horses. I mean, that guy rides horses around the city of Worcester.
He's got literal horsepower. So Bob Largess could be the most powerful man in Worcester who's with a beard, besides Jordan Levy, who doesn't count.
Because he doesn't ride horses anywhere.
He doesn't. Nothing to do with Happiness nor ponies. That guy. One thing beard related I should mention too is that there's a beard competition coming up. It's called Whiskerite. They had it a couple years ago. It was incredible. They don't exactly know when or where the competition is going to be this year. So here's how it works. It's a fundraiser for the Worcester County Food Bank. All the money, 100%, goes to the food bank. There's like some prizes and things that comes out of some other way. All the money goes to the food bank. It's probably going to be held at a bar. Who knows where? Maybe your dive bar. Maybe, speaking of Bob Largess, maybe the Vernon. Who knows where it will be held. The way that it starts is you have to pay $5 to enter. If you you have to be clean shaven on a certain day. This year, D-Day is December 16th. You got to shave your face on September 16th, and you either got to go to the organizers and get it verified, or you got to like take your photo with that day's paper and be like, I got no beard, here I am. If you need to keep a beard for some reason, you still want to enter, you can pay I think $5 a centimeter fine and still enter the competition, because it's all about raising money. There's going to be probably four competitions as part of the competition. There were last year at least. One of them is just awesomest beard. Like, are you Bob Largess, basically, is that one. The second one is most creative beard. Are you doing something cool? Such as, for example, we have here in the Happiness Pony, we have Paul Hernandez has a nicely groomed, cool beard. The third one is going to be Best in Show. Best in Show is basically determined by votes or determined by money. You go around the bar, potentially even before the event, and you get people to give you money in your envelope to say you're the best beard, and whoever raises the most, all that money, everybody's envelopes all go to the food bank, and whoever brought in the most wins the Best in Show fan favorite award. The last competition is crappiest beard, saddest beard. This is why I think you should enter this competition. If you see, or you could just see, do you have a sad enough beard to win a competition, or do you just have a medium sad beard?
That's exactly the title that I was hoping to add to my resume.
Sad bearded Brendan Melican.
I have I got a picture that I should get to you for this show when you put it on the internet of a friend of mine who goes by the name of Chex Lunix. And he was a big fan of beards, but like not non-standard beards, and he had developed the ring head, which was a beard that it was a profile beard, shaved head.
Okay.
Right? But it was a ring of hair that just from the top all the way down to the sideburns, and then a neck beard. So everything up here was clean shaven. The back,
The back
of
and
the
the
clean,
front of his head
was clean shaven.
in
It was
his
just literally one stripe of hair that went down the top, down the sides of the sideburns, connected to a neck beard.
That's
it was
incredible.
terrifying, is what it was. You just could not look at him at all while he was wearing this hairstyle.
This to me sounds like a guaranteed winner.
I don't know. I mean, again, it's a pretty intimidating look. I mean, I think you would need to be dressed in like a Santa Claus suit or as a leprechaun to pull it off, to not just scare everybody away.
I don't know. I can see this happening. Anyways,
People should enter. I think you can email. How long does the period of growth go for?
oh, it's probably gonna be like 2-3 months.
2 or 3 months.
So you could grow. Like, let me show you a photo. Here's a photo of Derek Ring, literally at the Whiskerite competition. So like, that's the kind of beard that a person, and I think he may have won. I don't remember whether he won for raising money or just beard quality, but he was one of the winners. So that's the kind of beard that you could have. You probably have to contend with. It's getting a little bit long.
He's a
for some
creative
people.
person. Creative people are always better with beards.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is that determines beard, your ability to grow a beard. I feel like even if you can't grow a beard,
You don't think it's genetics, maybe?
here's the reasons to join this. Number one, it's kind of fun to go out to a bar and be part of a charity beard competition. But the main reason is number two, which is for like 2 months, people are going to say to you, Brendan, you growing a beard? And you're going to say, I'm entering a charity beard competition. And every time you say, I'm entering a charity beard competition, that might be the highlight of your day. It's just like super fun to say that over and over in response to people's questions. You could say it now, I'm entering a charity beard competition, but it won't delight your heart. So that is that.
If you already have a beard and you want to say it right now while you're watching this at home, you can test it out and see if it might be the thing for you.
You can. I think you email whiskerite@gmail.com or go to facebook.com/whiskerite, and you can enter. You can attempt to find out as the details come along. I'm just letting you know because this is going to be awesome. I'm 100% going to enter this competition. I'm really excited. So there we go. This is what we got this week. We got creativity. We got ideas for a competition. You can enter. Start at the Station also is Sunday, by the way. It's going to be good. Apparently, you can go to Start at the Station an hour early at 10 rather than 11 a.m. if you pay $5.
All right.
So you don't have to, because it's super crowded in this.
It is super crowded.
So you can kind of have a mellower holiday shopping experience. Plus, you can give them $5 to help them out,
Which isn't a bad thing at all.
Right. They're going to try to sell you like a T-shirt or something for
Maybe
$10.
Black Friday
You don't need a
function
T-shirt.
that way. That's something that the retailers should look into for Black Friday. You can
Yeah.
pay $10,000 and you cut the line, right? Everyone's camping outside,
You can be
and
the
you don't
first
get
person in
maced in the
there.
face over a $2 waffle iron at Walmart.
And if you get maced, they give you your money
They give
back.
you your money back, right?
People go so crazy. They would totally be willing to pay a lot of money for exclusive access to Walmart an hour early.
Well,
Are you
that's
kidding me?
yeah. I mean, yeah,
I'm sure they're going to do it next year.
it's my idea.
It's your idea. Anyways, so this is what we got this week. We got ideas for beard competitions. We got ideas on making a pontoon city. Plus, you know what the best thing is, man? Occupy Worcester. If they do this, pirates. Every possible, right? Because right now they're doing kind of like a little bit of campish thing, a little bit of a hippie thing. But there's so much. You get the Jolly Roger. You got eye patches. Can you imagine Scott Guzman with a fake peg leg and an eye patch?
And you know what's something that's really cool too that
Parrots.
Parrots are cool.
Grog.
Having a hobo fire on a frozen lake, and I may have actually seen this happen in the past, where like the fire is burning in a barrel and then melts through the ice. Like
Yes.
that momentary interaction between a fire and frozen water, but like as it sinks, is an incredible thing. It's like the steam. It's like a big flume comes. Beautiful, beautiful. It's like a geyser.
If I was the Telegram and Gazette, I would be secretly funding them money to build a pontoon boat city. Because, again, how many hits to the website are you going to get reporting on the pontoon city day by day?
I will put this out there now that I will donate my backyard for any Occupy Lake Quinsigamon needs. If you want to start building boats and you're saying, well, where the hell are we going to build a boat that we can get away with this? My backyard is all yours, right? You bring in the big, whatever water, the 5-gallon water containers and whatnot that you want to fill. Poland Springs bottles, whatever. Start building your pontoon boats.
Sounds good.